Hi, so I know it's been a while and we have a few really big updates to update you about in our family.
You have to be your biggest fan. And when things are really tough and they're really rough and nothing's working, but there's something inside of you that says, I just have to follow that. Because you don't know who you're going to meet, who you're going to meet, who you're going to meet.
So if you haven't been watching, now's the time to start. And I couldn't be more excited to tell you about everything that's been going on in the last year and a half, a little bit more, and a lot of things that we have on the horizon. So let's get into it. So first of all, I want to talk about my daughter Haleli, who's my oldest daughter, and that she finally got her autism diagnosis that happened last summer, right before school started. And anyone who's been watching my videos knows there's a video that I did before about the process and trying to get her evaluated, and we were waiting on some paperwork, and we were kind of in the middle of the process to see if we could get her diagnosed. So now, flash forward, she did get the diagnosis. We did get the paperwork completed, and she has the autism diagnosis. And for now, she's not in a class with kids with autism, but she's in a smaller class for kids that have like learning disabilities like ADHD and other like neurodiverse or learning difficulties, basically. So it's a smaller classroom. She has her main teacher, she has some extra helpers, and then she gets additional occupational therapy and speech therapy within the school in a group setting to help her cope with what's going on at school. And she's been doing amazing. She's like really motivated, and that's the thing that's been really good for us is she is so motivated, and I don't really have to like stay on top of her or push her a lot. She just kind of gets things done, and she's keeping up with her grade work level, which is a new thing for us. So that's exciting. And we're just really excited to see where she goes. We did genetic testing for her. And at that point, we knew that my boys have a microduplication that we had from previous testing. And I'll leave the links to those videos like up here if you're interested in watching more about those. I go into a lot more detail there. So in the new genetic testing, I was tested along with my two oldest boys, and we were testing further, like more extensive testing of what they felt like was more appropriate nowadays. When we originally did the genetic testing, they looked more at like duplications and deletions within your genetic code and things that just pop out like as not like typical, basically. So it's an easy way for them to kind of sort through and see quickly like what could be going on. And even with that testing, a lot of people won't get a result, but we did. And it was one that is linked to autism. The amount of the microduplication we have is a little bit on the lower side, they said, but it still was like connected with it and everything. And so, because my girls were struggling, we wanted to get them tested and see if they're also carrying the gene, because they said it might be help us with like the diagnostic process for them because we were having trouble getting them diagnosed. And the neurologist told me if I can show that there's like a genetic thing, then we could have like more of a clear case and say yes, they have autism. So that's kind of what started everything back up. Otherwise, like people usually do genetic testing just for research and development. It's kind of good to know there's also some common health issues and disorders that go hand in hand with autism, or and sometimes those can be flagged in these genetic screenings. So if you're at risk for something like that, like seizures or heart problems or anything else that, even if it's not autism related, it could just be something in your family and maybe you're not aware of it. Anything from breast cancer to, I don't know, other cancer genes and other things they can pick up on, kidney disease, all these kind of things, anything that's linked to like a known genetic issue, they pick up in these testings. So basically, originally we did this microduplication testing, and then when we went back to the geneticist, she basically said that they don't hold so much by that one anymore because it's a bit, the whole thing with genetic testing really is a gray area, but she was saying that is more of a gray area. And so she wanted to do an exome test where they look a lot closer at the individual genetic code and they look for things more specifically. It's like a deeper dive basically. And it's usually very, very expensive. It can be like, I think, like a $2,000 test, something like that. We got a grant from our local government basically that they were willing to pay for this testing for the two boys and me because we did the previous testing, and the qualification to get this grant was basically that you had to have previous testing and it had to come back with a result of something genetic. And so because we had already found the microduplication, we were able to apply for this grant and get the new testing done for free for me and the two boys. So we did the testing and they found something else. They found another variant, and it's also been linked to autism. And so they realized through this testing, because they tested me this time, which they hadn't tested me in the past, that I carry the microduplication, but I don't carry the variant. So then they wanted to test my husband and my two girls to see what they're carrying. But they were not testing for the microduplication, they were only looking for this variant. So they found out that my husband carries the variant that's linked to autism, and the girls don't carry that variant, but they didn't test them to see if they carry the microduplication. So I think that they probably have the microduplication like I do. And then the boys have both. They're getting it from both sides, basically. They're getting the microduplication and this variant that they found that are both linked to autism and like learning disabilities and learning difficulties and different things. And so they're kind of getting double whammy from both sides, and the girls are getting from one side. And I think it's really interesting because it was a lot. I wouldn't say it was easy because my second was not so easy to diagnose, but like their symptoms were much more aggressive, I guess you could say, more pronounced, and it was easier to get my boys diagnosed than it has been to get my girls diagnosed. So it's really interesting to take all of this into consideration. I mean, girls generally present differently and have a different um, set of symptoms and criteria and whatever that doesn't line up with the standardized testing. And that's a whole nother discussion, which I'm happy to talk about. In terms of updates, that's what we found out is basically we're carrying two different genetic abnormalities. And me and my husband are both carrying a different genetic abnormality. I am carrying the microduplication that's linked to autism, and my husband's carrying a variant that's been linked to autism. And the variant is much bigger and more significant. The microduplication is on the smaller side, but it can still cause issues. So the boys have the variant and the microduplication, and my girls don't have the variant, but we don't know if they have the microduplication because they didn't test them for that. They just tested for the variant that my husband has because that was what they were more concerned with. And then my youngest, we haven't tested yet. So I'm guessing he's probably like the older two boys and has both, but he hasn't been tested yet. And I'm not sure if we'll do testing for him because at this point it's not really helpful in um, getting help for us. So it's more of just a, oh, that's nice to know kind of thing. Um, and basically they said they'll be in touch with us, if things change in the system or they have new tests or new things to see if we're linked to or whatever, they might contact us, or when our kids get to the age that they want to marry, if they want to do more testing, they can. But right now there's no specific gene that's linked just to autism. There's different ones. Sometimes people have autism and it doesn't show up in your genetics at all. So it's a very gray area. There's not a lot of for sure's with it. It's more kind of like research and understanding, which also kind of like after we did genetic testing, I kind of realized that they're looking for autism a lot because they want to delete it from people's genetics and codes. And I'm not okay with that because that basically means like my children wouldn't exist if we started doing things like that, or they wouldn't be who they are and stuff. So I'm not into it for those reasons. I am into genetic testing in terms of seeing if there could possibly be anything else potentially that we're carrying that, is linked with autism, like seizures or something that sometimes pops up in these screenings, something like that. But in terms of like changing who they are, I wouldn't change them at all. So yeah, my younger one, Millie, we finally are getting her, we're in the process still of getting her diagnosed. She's almost 5 now. We've been working on this basically for the past 2 years. With time, I'm kind of seeing it's like if it's not severe deficits or they don't have high support needs, they're a lot less likely to kind of give over the diagnosis. It takes a lot more patience and perseverance and saying, well, what about this? What about that? And like really knowing what the criteria are and showing them where they're not succeeding with these criteria and where they are. And um, that's what I found has been kind of the key in getting my girls diagnosed. And with my younger daughter, I thought she'd be easier, like I said, and she wasn't because she does check the boxes more clearly than my older daughter, but they're just giving me a hard time because I feel like now they're like, oh, you're just like all your kids are. And like I'm sure there's people that get confused and think they are. And I always have my doubts and I say, well, maybe I'm putting this on them or, like obviously I don't want to put anything on my kids that isn't accurate or true, but there's certain things that are happening that we keep coming back to. No, it is this, and that's where you just gotta trust your mama gut and do your best you can for your child. And then with my younger son, uh, we have had him evaluated. So far, they're saying no, but they're saying they do see symptoms, and they're saying basically because he's still quite young. He's only 2.5. He'll be 3 at well, he's almost 3. He'll be 3 like just after the new year. And basically my older boys got diagnosed right around then, like 3, 3.5. No, my oldest was diagnosed, I think, at 3.5. My second was 4.5. Laylee was 7, and Millie now at like 4.5. So a little bit older. So they're saying, okay, let's see. Like we see there's issues. We see you're struggling. We just want to keep follow up basically. So we'll see. I don't know. Like I'm not holding my breath. He just had a follow up and she noted the concerns that I had. His speech is still very, very weak. He probably has 20 to 30 words. So he's very much speech delayed like my oldest. I'm not really surprised with that because all my kids have struggled with language development. And we're in a foreign country, so they're learning 2 languages, which makes it even harder. Even in English, he is struggling. He is really struggling. It's kind of interesting with him basically because he is a mix of my older 2. Like it's always interesting to kind of look at each kid and their sensory profile and then see like how they differ. Like I've learned a lot. So anyways, Zachy is in a early intervention preschool that he was eligible for because he needed speech therapy and occupational therapy. And basically if you need more than 2 or more therapies, they'll put you into this program. And with the family history of the other kids having autism and speech delays and stuff, they basically are like, you're eligible. So we were able to get him into a really good program. So he's been getting therapy now for about a year. He started about a year ago, around December last year. So he's been there a full year now, and they run through summer break and everything. So it's great. It's really like, it's pretty much like 6 days a week. He goes Sunday through Friday. Friday's a short day, but he has Sunday through Friday. And while he is there, he gets a couple hours of therapy. They have a room on campus that they bring someone in and works with the kids that need help. They pull them out of the daycare and they give them help and they do their therapies with them. So they have, he's right now he's doing occupational therapy, speech therapy, and physical therapy because his walk is, he didn't start walking until a little bit later, which is a little bit different than my other kids. They were on track. He's a little bit later. He started walking at 18 months. Most of my other kids are walking at 12 months. And his stride, like when he walks, was still kind of like babyish. Like he's not quite putting his weight right when he's moving. And he has trouble with stairs and stuff. So we had him evaluated and they're helping him with physical therapy, which is great. So there's no like major concerns there. It's just like he's already getting, so why not get it done while he's there? It's easier. Because I don't have to run him out. He's like there and they just take him and then put him back in class. And he also has like a shadow that goes to therapy with him and then goes back to class and she'll work on things that he's doing in therapy. And then they write me notes and send me like updates with what he learned and what he's doing. And then occasionally I have meetings with them to discuss what he's learning and doing. So it's really great. And then next year, he's going to be 3.5, so he'll be eligible to start the preschool that we have here. Basically, all kids get preschool from 3.5, and it's subsidized, so you don't pay anything. You pay like for their afternoon fee, a one-time fee for the year for the afternoon program. But it's very affordable, and otherwise it's free for the daytime bit. So he'll start that, and he's going to need to go into the special education framework because there's no way he'll cope in a regular class with 30 plus kids. Daycare now, he has, oh, there's a lot of kids in there. There's like, I don't know, probably 20 to 30 kids, but they have a couple people, staff, and then he has his shadow that comes and spends about 20 hours a week with him and helps him. So he is in a bigger class, but I don't think it's the best situation for him. Um, you have committees, and you have to apply to the committee to get approved to get into special education. And so right now, between like December, February is basically when everyone's putting in applications to have their kids placed for these meetings. And then they make the meetings between February to April, sometimes May. And then once all the meetings are done, then they start placing the kids so that by the summertime, pretty much placements have been made for the next year. So you have to really be on top of things. And so that's basically where we are now, is we're like kind of prepping to get him approved to be in the special education system because he's going to be starting school next year, even though it's preschool. Where we are, they have special education classes for 3-year-olds, 4-year-olds, 5-year-olds. And then once you start first grade, there's also, regular special education too, but they have it even for the younger ages, which is really nice. So we're hoping to get him into a language development class, which is in the special ed system. So they work more on like language issues and things like that. If he gets a diagnosis, obviously he'll get to be in an autistic class. But yeah, we'll see. We just have to see what happens. So basically in February, they're gonna review and reevaluate, and they're gonna give him a psychological exam then, which they haven't done because he's young. So that could help him get the diagnosis. The doctor she seemed to think that possibly the testing that needs to be done at that age might push him into an autism diagnosis more than already. So we'll see. So yeah, that's pretty much all the kids updated. So basically, we found out recently with my oldest that I just recently had his IEP, like individualized educational plan, or EHCP in England, that's what they call them. But basically, um, reviewing like his goals for the year and what we're working on and where he's holding and everything. And for him, this is his last year in elementary school. He's supposed to be moving up to like middle school. He's going from 6th grade to 7th grade. So he's going to be switching school. So it's also discussing where he's at and where he's going to be for next year, because it's going to be a change of scenery for him. He's going to stay within a class for kids with autism, and most likely he'll be moving up with some of his peers that he already has friends with, which is really good. Like some of his friends from his class should be moving with him. But we did find out that he's struggling in school a lot more than we thought, which is a little bit of a shock. So now we're kind of trying to figure out what we want to do with that. I think we're going to have to do this other evaluation that's more for like learning difficulties, like dyslexia and those type of things. Also, like him, Avadia and Halele are a lot alike in that they check like every box for SPD, which is speech pragmatic disorder, which is basically word retrieval, low memory, planning and organizing of your thoughts, and all this stuff. It's heavy. They struggle with it a lot. It makes learning really hard for them because they're having to double work. Their processing is slower. So they're like hearing something, processing it, and then getting it back out, which everybody does, but it takes so much longer for them to realize it that it's hard to keep up with the pace of a regular class. And it's also just very exhausting and tiring. And so we're having a lot of trouble with him. He needs a lot of like motivation and support and input to keep him going. He has really low muscle tone. That's something we've always struggled with him. He doesn't sit up straight, doesn't hold his posture up. Anything that's like physical, like sports or any type thing like that is like very exhausting for him. He's low energy. tires out really quickly, all those kind of things. So that kind of stuff's really hard for him, and he's been struggling with that being a boy and being that all the boys pretty much play sports, and on break time he has a hard time because he can't keep up with them. Like, he does like sports and he does try to play and um, join in, but he struggles because he just can't keep pace with them, that they kind of get fed up with him. So that's been a new issue as well. We found out that his learning is really far behind. I knew he wasn't up to grade. I just didn't realize how far back he was. And I'm kind of frustrated that they didn't tell me sooner how far behind he is. I know that he does better at math. And so he's like doing a higher grade level math than he is for everything else. But because of all the language issues, I think it's really holding him back. And then with the motivation, and he's very lethargic and all of that, it's just all of it together. It's become a big mess, basically. And so I have to figure out for him how we can help him. And I don't want him to be um, not confident in his abilities, because he is a smart kid. And I know with time he'll get there. And maybe that's just what it's going to be, is it's just going to take him. I just feel like with the boys, like, it may take them longer to get to where people their age already are, like, maybe because, like, he's 12 now. Um, he's more like where my daughter is, who's 7 grade level wise. Both my boys, they're 11 and 12, and they're basically at the same grade level as my 7-year-old. And it's not because they're not smart, it's just with either with regulation or the learning issues, or just different things that throw a wrench into everything. It's just hard to like keep them at pace with their school level, and so it's fallen low for them, and it's concerning. And I'm trying to figure out how to balance it and help them out. So that's kind of where we're at. I kind of have a few ideas of what we're going to do, but I'm also looking into further testing so we can have a clearer picture of where we should focus our efforts the most, like what's going to help them move forward the most without stressing them out. That's the other key. So yeah, it's just a lot of stuff to figure out. So basically, I have to figure out the boys' educational plan going forward because they're very far behind in their schoolwork. My daughter, my oldest daughter, got her diagnosis. My younger daughter is in the middle of her diagnosis. She has one. Here where we live, you have to have 2 people saying you have the diagnosis. So we have like a half diagnosis, I guess you could say. And then the baby, he's not really a baby, he's a toddler, he's 2.5, is in the middle of being evaluated and followed up and everything. So I think he's headed that direction. It's just a matter of when, basically. And then on top of everything, we got a very big surprise and found out that my birth control failed and I'm expecting. So we have a 6th on the way, and the new baby is due in March, which is my oldest. The new baby's basically due the same time as my oldest's birthday, which is a big event because we're Jewish, and he's going to be having his bar mitzvah. So basically, we're going to have a baby and a bar mitzvah really close together, which is going to be very stressful. And then we have like some big dental work coming up for Dovey around the same time, and Zaki's follow up for his evaluations around that time. It's like everything is getting scheduled right now for that 2-3 week period, and so it's going to be a bit crazy and stressful, and I'm kind of freaking out, but trying to get a plan together and have it all together. So I'm happy to talk more about that and how we're going to plan and strategize and everything. But really, I just wanted to give like an update on a bunch of different things that's going on, and I'm going to hopefully make a video and break things down a little bit more. I know this is like a lot of information and a lot to digest. So if you have any questions, feel free to leave me a question in the comments. I'm more than happy to try to get back to you. And as always, like, this is just my perspective on things in our life. I am a mom of 5, almost soon to be 6. And these are my experiences. This is what I found has helped us. These are things that we're struggling with. It doesn't mean it's the same for everyone. I'm not a doctor. I'm not telling you what to do. You should always consult your physician. But I'm just here to kind of give like our story over, so it hopefully helps someone else and gives guidance to someone else of things that you can look at and things that you can do and all of these sort of things. Because when I started out on this, I didn't know anything, and we really like lucked out with my oldest of the therapeutical stuff that we got in different things, and it just kind of like set us up for success and set the bar for us, and we just lucked out that we got really good therapists and things that they set the standard so high, it's like we've been trying to meet that standard for the other kids now, and it's hard because there's not a lot of those therapists around and things, and it's important to know what you can get for your kids and what works for your kids and what their profiles are and all this stuff. So if there's something you want to know more about, let me know and I'm happy to make a video about it. And hopefully I'm going to start having videos a lot more regularly. And I miss doing this and I'm really trying to get back into the swing of things. So let's go. Let's get it going. All right. Until I talk to you guys next time, have a great day. Bye.